Arise, O compatriots. It's time to vote the right leadership to lead Nigeria to peace and prosperity. Since the country attained independence in 1960, Nigeria has never had it so bad. The country is now lying prostrate, afflicted by crass ineptitude in governance, reduced to a collection of tribal enclaves, financially hamstrung by the greed and corruption of its leaders. All this under the watch of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the most incompetent president Nigeria has ever had. The machinations of the Jonathan administration in the run-up to the 2015 elections reminds Nigerians of 1965, when an unpopular government tried to force itself on the people of the Western Nigeria. Indeed, so crazy were the times that the deputy premier of the region, Remi Fani Kayode, known as Fani Power, because of his ability to unleash an army of thugs on opponents at a moment's notice, infamously declared, "Whether you vote for us or not, we shall win." The spokesperson for the Jonathan campaign, Femi Fani Kayode, is worse than his violent father. To begin with, his entire life is a series of big lies. For example, Wikipedia reveals the full names of the so-called born-again Christian as David Oluwafemi Adewumi Abdulateef Fani Kayode, with a court case hanging over his head for money laundering. During the Obasanjo administration, Femi Fani Kayode was quickly rehabilitated and appointed Jonathan's spokesman. This was the same Fani Kayode who had, in a rare moment of clarity, described Jonathan as a president without balls in a newspaper article. Fani Kayode had also, in another piece titled "Jonathan, Tuko and a Government of Jezebels," characterized Jonathan as a president who prides himself on his own weakness and incompetence, and whose love of false prophets and strange women knows no bounds and has no end.
If President Goodluck Jonathan runs for election on the PDP platform, and if a candidate is put forward by the APC, and the APC remains united, I believe that in that equation and in that situation, the APC is more than likely going to win the presidency.
Talking about Jezebels, Fani Kayode should know, as a recent revelation made by his former female friend, Honorable Ada Uchebu, shows.
The house girl to Akin Oshutoku used to come and visit Fani Kayode, and she was no more than 16, 17 years. Unfortunately, she got pregnant for him, and then he denied the pregnancy.
Femi Abdulateef Fani Kayode is as morally bankrupt as the government he now speaks for. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, is not prepared for free and fair elections. Jonathan's abysmal performance in the last 6 years stands against them. Having succeeded in blackmailing INEC to shift the elections, they are still scared of the newly introduced Permanent Voters Card, PVC. They have been sponsoring violent ethnic militias to call for the removal of INEC chairman, Professor Atahiru Jega, and destroying the billboards of the All Progressives Congress, APC. Recently, the armed militias, sponsored by the PDP and guarded by the police and military personnel, brought Lagos to a standstill, displaying their arms and ammunition in broad daylight. For the first time since the return to democracy in 1999, the PDP faces a real electoral challenge this year in the form of the All Progressives Congress, APC's General Muhammadu Buhari. PDP is so scared of Buhari that it has based all its campaign strategy on maligning the general, but Nigerians can no longer be fooled. PDP's dishonest steps are continuously dogged by failure, as evidenced by Doyin Okupe's recent disgrace in the hands of journalists. The Cinderella tale of how Jonathan became president is the stuff of which fables are made. Appointed as running mate to Dipriye Alamasia in the governorship race of 2003, Jonathan became governor of his native Bayelsa state when his boss was impeached for stealing public funds. He was again appointed running mate to Umaru Yar'Adua in the 2007 elections and again benefited from the death of his boss. He became acting president and later president. In 2011, he ran as presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, promising to serve only one term since he had completed Yar'Adua's term. That understanding was made public by former President Olusegun Obasanjo shortly after Jonathan's inauguration.
The President Jonathan, said, and not only once, twice, publicly, not only in Nigeria, outside Nigeria, that he will have one term. And he said that to me. And I believe that one of the things that is very important in the life of any man or any person is that he must be a man or a person of his word.
Jonathan betrayed the trust of all those who had backed him in 2011 and stage managed his emergence as presidential candidate again in 2015 in a farce of a presidential primary where he was the only candidate. Jonathan has deployed hate as a weapon in his re-election campaign, pitching Christians against Muslims, South against North, brother against sister. His main weapon, a series of lies.
Some 60% of the people of Nigeria don't have enough or regular power, regular electricity. There are constantly shortages and outages.
I would have loved that you ask an ordinary Nigerian on the streets of Lagos, Abuja, or any other city this question about power. That is one area that Nigerians are quite pleased with the government, that our commitment to improve power is working.
For the past, 4 years, now even where I'm staying, actually, I don't have lights. For the past, let me just say, for the past 1.5 years, they have been promised all these lights, which we've not seen.
Power in our nation, Nigeria, is very bad, low this time around, because even in my area where I stay now, it doesn't have power at all.
The power generation in the country is so badly to the extent that it affects nearly every sector of the economy.
We, the masses, are actually suffering because in one way or the other, it's affecting our businesses.
For now, it's very, very poor.
People are suffering. There is suffering in Nigeria. Great suffering in Nigeria. No good road, no hospital, no stable lights, no drinking water, no transportation, nothing. Nothing in Nigeria is moving, nothing.
Corruption has now reached an industrial scale in Nigeria. We all remember with sadness the multi-billion naira pension fund scam. Also, Petroleum Minister Diezeni Alison Madueke's renting of 2 private jets for 10 billion naira. The story of the Jonathan administration is a litany of corruption. Convicts such as Dipriye Alamaisia are routinely granted state pardon and rehabilitated to contest senatorial election. Abuja tarmac expansion inflated contract, which makes the new tarmac the most expensive per square meter in the whole world. Private jets and arms deal. Instead of buying arms through due process, our government went the way of gangsters by smuggling millions of dollars into South Africa in 2 tranches of $9.7 million, which was ferried by a private jet belonging to their pastor friend, and a $5.3 million transferred through the banking system. Then the immigration tragedy. To date, nobody has been punished for the death of Nigerian youth during the scam-laced immigration recruitment exercise in 2014. Under Jonathan, corruption is never punished because the government itself thrives on a system of opaque patronages. It is clear that Jonathan does not know the meaning of corruption. It shows in his personal life. While occupying the seat of president, he incorporated a company, Ebele Integrated Farms Limited, in which he is a major shareholder. On January 13, 2014, Ebele Integrated Farms Limited was granted a 9,404 hectare plot of land, 1680, in cadastral zone E05 Aviation Village, Abuja. As Jonathan is helping himself to Nigerian goodies, so are his ministers. For example, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Bala Mohammed, is a major shareholder in a company Bird Trust Agro Allied Limited, which he incorporated on 31st May 2012 and allocated a 40.40 hectare plot 1682 in cadastral zone E05 of Aviation Village, Abuja on 11th April 2014. The president has been encouraging hate peddlers like Edwin Clark and Asari Dokubo to inflame the national passion and openly commit treason without restraint.
No Northerner will ever be elected president in this country again.
One of the biggest scandals of all time was the fuel subsidy scam in which party men and their children defrauded the nation to the tune of $6.8 billion. The Jonathan administration spent 971 billion naira in 2014 and is still planning to spend 457 billion naira in 2015 on phantom subsidies. The government is not interested in local refining of crude oil because fuel importation is one of the prime avenues for lining the pockets of loyalists. Nigeria is the only member of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, that imports petroleum products. In furtherance of the empire of corruption, 21 billion naira was raised for Jonathan's presidential campaigns by friends of government and beneficiaries of fraud, in excess of the stipulation by the electoral law. President does not believe in the rule of law, as shown by his close association with Alhaji Ali Modu Sharif, who has been fingered as one of the original sponsors of Boko Haram, and companionship with Buruji Kashamu, a fugitive from the American justice system, who is alleged to be a drug baron. Jonathan is the first Nigerian president to diminish his position by appealing to base provincial sentiments as if he was elected president of a tribe and not a nation. He uses the twin fault lines of religion and ethnicity to divide and rule, and he speaks from both sides of the mouth. Imagine when the Eagle Square bombing happened in Abuja, he immediately told the media that it was not carried out by the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta, MEND. That was at a time that MEND was in his good books.
People just use the name of MEND to camouflage criminality and terrorism.
But during his recent campaigns, he has been telling the people that MEND had planned to assassinate him.
Oka was procured by some Nigerians to assassinate me. And Oka bombed Abuja. The attempt was to assassinate me.
Which MEND, Mr. President? But it's the economy that has suffered most under Jonathan and the PDP. As recently disclosed by Chukwuma Soludo, former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, our public finance is hemorrhaging to the point that estimated over 30 trillion naira is missing or stolen or unaccounted for or simply mismanaged. The Obasanjo administration paid off a chunk of our debts, but Jonathan has returned us to the famous list of debtors and depleted our foreign reserves. A quick checklist of Jonathan's achievements: a rigging down of the $20 billion not remitted to the federal account by the NNPC to $1.48 billion by PricewaterhouseCoopers. At the current exchange rate, that is 314 billion naira unremitted. Use of the army to invade newspaper houses and confiscate newspapers in breach of the Freedom of Information Law and the Constitution. Brazen appropriation of the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag to bring back Jonathan, and ignoring protests at home until stung into remorse by the foreign press. How much more cruel can a president be? Electricity generation is still below 4,000 megawatts, despite huge investments and supposed privatization of the sector. About $24 billion has been spent so far without any visible improvement. 24% of Nigerians are unemployed. It is easy to understand why there is so much misery in Nigeria under Jonathan. Jonathan has failed to deliver on his 2011 election promises: inland port in Onitsha, dry port in Aba, and the East-West Road. The foundation of the second Niger Bridge has been laid twice, but there is no bridge to show for it. President Jonathan is on record as celebrating Nigeria's economic growth by boasting that he has created many millionaires and billionaires, not that he has created more jobs. The fleet in Nigeria's presidential aircraft, 11 at the last count, is more than that of many commercial airlines in Nigeria. Nigeria's domestic debt under Jonathan has risen to 8.9 trillion naira, or 9.2% of revised gross domestic product, GDP. Our external debt has also risen to $9.5 billion. All we get to hear are pious jargons that bring only misery to our people from Finance Minister Okonjo-Iweala, to whom Jonathan has abandoned the responsibility of managing the economy.
Jonathan administration is a neo-colonial regime, as where our country is run like a satellite of imperialism. And what the youths have turned to do, in alliance with workers and the progressive forces in our country, is to seize our freedom.
Established institutions are sabotaged by government and their core operations contracted out to lackeys. Under Jonathan, Nigerian security has been turned into a huge avenue for contracts. Only recently, militants operating under 7 names were allocated areas of control as follows. 1. Egbe Security River 1 to handle Bayelsa. 2. Gallery Security takes charge from Musimi to Ore. 3. Close Body Protection, Edo State. 4. Adex Energy Security, Rivers. 5. Donix Global Concept, Lagos and Ogun. 6. Oil Facilities Surveillance, Delta. And 7. New Age Global Security, Musimi, Ibadan. The real reason for unbundling our security system is to use the militant groups and their sponsors to rig the forthcoming presidential elections, or, if that fails, to unleash untold violence all over the country that will bring Nigeria to its knees. Stolen crude oil stood at about 400,000 barrels a day in April 2014, which equals 17% of national production and amounts to a loss of $1.4 billion. In the political realm, the world was recently shocked by revelations of how Brigadier General Aliyu Momo of the Nigerian Army was used by the PDP federal government to rig the Ekiti state governorship election.
Reaching Spotless Hotel in Ado, Ekiti, we entered a room, then I saw the State Minister of Defense, the current Minister of Police Affairs, Omishure and Fayoshe were already in the room that we entered.
Both Alhaji Lai Mohammed and Malam Nasir El Rufai suffered detention in the hands of security agents.
We got to the bus and then we met this gunmen, all hooded, very hostile. Our phones were taken away from us, and after what seemed like eternity, we were driven to the directorate of the headquarters of the State Security Service.
At the same time, the government and its security agencies turned a blind eye to the tendentious activities and statements of some miscreants from the Niger Delta who have publicly vowed to destroy Nigeria if Jonathan loses the forthcoming election.
They will never arrest me, because if they do, the consequences of my arrest, Nigeria will be history. I am saying it bold and clear without missing word, that the consequences of my arrest, Nigeria will be history.
Compared to other leaders faced with terrorism, Jonathan's incompetence cries out to high heavens. No wonder an elder statesman and former chairman of SURE-P, Dr. Christopher Kolade, declared that Jonathan lacks capacity for leadership. In our own case, what does our president do on hearing that over 200 girls were abducted from their school by the Boko Haram terrorists? What did our president do? Nothing. He did nothing for 10 days. And to add insult to injury, his wife, Dame Patience Jonathan, ridiculed herself in her attempt to ridicule the victims.
Principal, no too. You waka come. Okay. The bloods we are sharing, there is God, oh. There is God, oh. There is God, oh. There is God, oh. There is God, oh.
Our people are very proud, resilient people. with a rich history spanning over 1,000 years. Our head is bloody but remains unbowed.
The same patient Jonathan has also been mounting a campaign of hate and violence at PDP rallies where she distributes clothing and foodstuff.
My dear me, I am telling you, let us don't listen. Anybody that come and tell you change, stone that person. I hear yourself.
Isn't it pathetic that in their self-deceit and inferiority complex, the PDP compares Jonathan with Lee Kuan Yew, Barack Obama, Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela? The truth is that Jonathan is unfit to untie the thongs of their intellectual sandals. Under Jonathan's watch, Nigeria's influence has diminished internationally. Recently, Morocco was so exasperated by the Jonathan administration's barefaced lies that it withdrew its ambassador from Nigeria. At African Union summits, our delegation is usually the butt of jokes, some of which are too painful to be repeated. No wonder that in spite of his use of religion and ethnicity to divide Nigerians along the usual fault lines, in spite of the billion-dollar campaign to discredit General Muhammadu Buhari, in spite of PDP's last-minute appeal that Nigerians should pardon Jonathan for his incompetence and serial destruction of the country socially, politically and economically, Nigerians have spoken with one voice that General Muhammadu Buhari is their choice for president. As civilian president in 2015, by the grace of God, Buhari will operate under democratic tenets. Buhari is man enough to take responsibility for his leadership. To be sure, Buhari wouldn't be the first general to rise up patriotically to the rescue of his country.
When South Africa was in great dilemma and was about to disintegrate, who did they call? Mandela, of 74 years old, right? And used his wisdom to save South Africa. When America was in the economic depression, who did they call? The 73-year-old Ronald Reagan.
Those who are afraid of a Buhari presidency are the eminent thieves and economic saboteurs, drug barons, local terrorists in the guise of militants, oil pirates, bribe takers who mount their illicit toll gates in various government agencies and within the corridors of power. Middlemen who facilitate the inflation of contracts and public officers who routinely abuse the trust reposed in them.
The first time we are having a PhD in charge of Nigeria, look at what nonsense he has made of the country.
It is clear that Goodluck Ebele Jonathan does not have anything more to offer Nigeria. In the last 4 years, security has taken more than 25% of our total budget. 2011, 968 billion naira. 2012, 921 billion naira. 2013, 950 billion naira. And 2014, 845 billion. Yet, we still have a long way to go. If Jonathan's performance was abysmal in 6 years, there is no guarantee that he can do better if given another mandate.
People are suffering. There is suffering in Nigeria. Great suffering in Nigeria. No good road, no hospital, no stable lights, no drinking water, no transportation, nothing. Nothing in Nigeria is moving, nothing.
They find a solution to that, and I mean quickly, there's going to be a crisis.
We need change. We, the Nigerian people, are the change. The All Progressives Congress, APC, is committed to job creation, fight against corruption, free and quality education, agricultural development, housing development, and healthcare plan for children and adults. An APC government will also provide social welfare for the less privileged. Stable power supply, standard infrastructure, better management of natural resources, security, freedom of religion, and a progressive focus on foreign affairs. General Muhammadu Buhari is a tested statesman with a proven track record of gallantry. As Commander-in-Chief, he will secure Nigeria and protect its citizens. It's time to bring on board a bold and firm leader, His Excellency General Muhammadu Buhari, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, is the man.
It has been a tough race, but we see General Buhari in first place, racing to the finish line, while the competition seems to have lost all energy. And what's this? They brought up propaganda. But he scales it. And now they are trying to block him with religion. But no way. They seem very desperate now. Oh no! They are bringing age, certificate, and now postponement. But General Buhari scared them all. General Buhari for the people. Vote Buhari for president. APC change.